Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you some tips with working with magazine images as focal images. Better grab a coffee. This one's quite a journey. So I started this page using collage papers from my stash. I've got a coffee filter that I've colorized, as well as a gel print that kind of has that pink plaid look to it. I'm just ripping them apart and arranging and layering them. Basically, I'm breaking the page at this point in time. Didn't know what I wanted to create, so I'm just throwing some quick color down to start the creative process. There is no right or wrong in placement, and try really hard not to overthink this step. This is just the first step, the first layer. And as I indicated earlier, this one, there's lots of steps to come. I just cut the straight edge there because I had taped off the coils. I love using coffee filters, colorized coffee filters. They collage down so lovely. So if it's not something you've tried, you should give it a try. I have a video where I show how I colorize them. I'll put a link to that in the iCards. So once this is completely dry, I'm going to add some stamping, and I'm going to stamp with the black archival ink. This vine one it's leading me to a floral motif as well as kind of botanical. My goal here is not to get a perfect stamp. This is just adding interest to the background. Now, many times when you start a page and you don't know where you're going, you don't have a set idea about what you want to create, your goal is just to create layers and to put things down. At different times, that might mean that some of this that you do in the early stages doesn't really show in your end product. Now, once I've put the collage papers down, I want to knock back some of that stamping and kind of blend everything together. And I'm just using white gesso and I'm just smearing that on. The paint that goes on this is going to go differently. Again, I'm just playing with colors and textures and pattern here. I'm using this fence grid stencil and Prussian blue paint, one of my favorite colors, and I'm stenciling that on. And I absolutely love this stencil, and I love this stage of this page. When you videotape, you get to have a sneak peek of where something was, and then kind of you're able to analyze where it went wrong, where maybe you should have stopped. This is punch card, and I wanted to put more pink on the page. And I chose punch card because of that plaid collage paper that I used with the pink. It had that square motif in it. So here's where I should have stopped. But I had the idea of squares in my head. This stencil specifically, and I wanted to add some squares. I was going to do some negative painting, or I am going to do some negative painting here. Now, the problem with the square wasn't the shape as I'm analyzing this. It's that one, maybe where I placed the squares, and two, maybe that the squares were too small, or maybe I should have had multiple sizes. I left this footage in because this is a good technique, and you've seen me doing this in other videos. Here I am shading the squares after deciding which square is going to be on top of which square. I'm shading with black, and I want to make these squares pop out. I've sped up this part of the video, because I undo a lot of this. Spoiler alert. Here I'm using the negative painting, and I'm painting this blue. This is where I made a mistake, because adding that blue made everything very one tone. There was too much blue, not enough contrast. And while it was okay, I really didn't know what to do next. So I set it aside, and I ended my session for several days. I grabbed it out again. It wasn't inspiring any next step. So when that happens, put something else. So I grabbed this leaf mandala stencil, leaf emblem stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I switched now to white acrylic paint, and I'm stenciling on that. I'm knocking back what I had there. I didn't like it. It wasn't inspiring a next step. So I have nothing to lose. I need to jolt myself out of this lack of inspiration. And instantly when I put these three elements on here, it gave me some more ideas. So if you're stuck, do something. Now, when I looked back at the video, I remember thinking I liked more pink. So I'm putting pink again to bring it more to the forefront and knock some of that back. And I go through my magazine pictures, and I grabbed this one, and I grabbed it because her dress is this dark navy, and it stands out from this very busy background. So this is where, for a very long time, I finally felt like, okay, I have a plan and I don't hate it. So I grab my fluid matte medium and I'm gluing this down. The matte medium is good for getting rid of the shine that you often get with magazine pictures. Now there was writing on this dress, so I'm applying some gesso and drying it, and then I'm going to try to get the color back. Now when I use Prussian blue, which is my darkest blue, it, as you can see, isn't quite as dark as the rest of the dress. So I add a little bit of black to it to get it to that same shade of navy. And because I wanted the texture to be the same on the top half of the dress, I did the same thing there. I'm adding gesso. It's kind of getting colorized because I didn't clean my brush, but that doesn't matter. I want it more for the texture to give it that painterly type of effect. And once that's dry, I'm going to, you guessed it, colorize it with the Prussian blue and then add some black. So the colors of the magazine pictures, you can completely alter. Sorry about that. Now I want the focal image to stand out. So I'm using white and I'm adding kind of a white halo highlight all the way around her using my angle brush and my shading technique. Adding more and then adding some to the top of the dress as well. Remember, you want your focal image to appear to be the most in the forefront. And I chose to use white here because the dress itself is so dark. Now I'm adding some detail to the dress. Remember, you can change the color like we did. You can get rid of print and you can do some doodling on it. Here I'm simply adding dots with my white Posca pen all the way around. Remember, the magazine picture is simply the starting point. You don't have to leave it as it is. Now I want to edge my page, and this time I'm using my woodless charcoal pencil. I love this. It gives a nice, soft, blended, but very dark black effect. And I know I'm not going to be putting any wet medium on that. If I was, the charcoal will reactivate and move and smudge. Here I'm just kind of sketchily outlining it with a little bit of black on top of the white shading that I did. Now, magazine pictures like this one, they go really well with my sassy saying sentiment pack. Those are just kind of tongue-in-cheek, funny sayings that you can give whatever fashion cutout that you've taken. And I picked, people say I act like I don't care. It's not an act. And then I'm going to glue that down with the fluid matte medium, being careful not to touch where the charcoal around the edge is. I put some at the top, and then I'm putting this one down here so your eye goes down the page. Again, once it's dry, I wanted to make her lips the quinacridone magenta that was in the background. So I am using a liner brush and painting her lips that color. I want to tie every element together. The pale peach lipstick just wasn't working. Then I decided I wanted to add some floral motif to the dress. Remember that leaf emblem stencil that we did with white? I'm just kind of playing off that and adding these florals from this Posies in a Row stencil onto the dress. And remember, because you put fluid matte medium on it, if you do make a mistake, you can get rid of it with a baby wipe very quickly. I could have continued with this floral motif all over the dress and given her a floral dress. But I wanted to keep it solid so it stood out from the background. The background's very busy. I wanted the dress to be solid. Now I'm using my stylus and I'm putting that quinacridone magenta in the middle of these daisies or posies. I'll put a link to a video where I talk about my how I pick magazine clippings. It's an old one, but I think it's a good one, especially if you're starting out. And that's an inexpensive focal image to use in your art journaling. Outlined the sentiment with my Posca pen. I'm adding some heat so I can easily remove the tape without removing paper because it's been on there for over a week. And there we have it. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope your art journal journeys may be a little less hectic than this one, but I hope you learned it's not about the end result, it's about the journey. Until next time, go get creative.